You have your Bibles with you. All right, your Bibles are here. Very good. We're going to go to the book of Matthew, chapter 25 again. And this is a cool time in the Bible. It's many memorable things. Excuse me. Like I said, if I start vehemently coughing, I'll ask Sean to then edit that out. But, and then I'll get my warm tea there, wash it, and then we continue on. Does that sound good? Excellent. Before we get to Matthew 25, I'd like you to take your eyes and march them backward a little bit into Matthew 24. Verse 36, but about that day or hour, no one knows. He's talking about the second coming. No one knows the day nor the hour. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it become at the coming of the Son of Man. Surprise. Moving on down, verse 42, therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, Jesus says. If the owner of the house kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. You know about that, right? Who has an alarm system at the house? Some of you have maybe ADT. I'm sorry, we're not advertising. I've got a Simply Safe, but it's one of those things where if someone comes in, that's a system to make sure that even if you don't know someone is coming, because when the thief comes, it's at a time when you're not there. At least you hope that, right? Now, there are times where people have been in the bathroom and they start hearing something removed, and then they say, do I have my cell phone near me? Right? Where there's many stories like that, where the surprise, interestingly enough, Jesus refers to himself as the thief in this circumstance. But he's saying, if you're vigilant and keep watch. But we don't like to keep watch. We like to enjoy. We let our guard down. And last week, there was the story of the 10 maidens, the 10 virgins, the 10 ladies who were not married, and they all fell asleep. Every one of them fell asleep, but 5 of them had enough oil to continue on. Remember that last week? I was actually surprised. I thought my oil was going to go out, and I was going to use that as an illustration, but never mind. The oil continued. We had lots of faith here in the room. Right? The oil, the faith of God, strength that comes from faith, the veracity that comes from faith. Then he ended that parable and he moves. Keep watch, you don't know the day or the other hour, because the ladies who didn't have faith they try to come once they have faith, they get it somewhere else, and a lot of times people say, well, that isn't nice, they should share the oil. Well, wait a minute. You can't share faith. You may be related to somebody, but no matter how much you believe, you can try to get them to believe, but that doesn't mean they will, because it's personal. So, verse 14. Again, now Jesus is going to talk about what we need to do as the thief comes. What we can do. Are you with me? Is anyone here going to sleep? If you're going to sleep, I'm going to make everyone do calisthenics. I know it's hot, and then the aircon, and it's kind of... But we're going to... I know, I sit in the rows too sometimes, especially when they're comfortable rows. And again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants together. He entrusted his wealth with them. Verse 15. Are you with me? Chapter 25 of Matthew, verse 15. To one he gave 5 what? Bags of gold, NIV. King James, New King James, talents. They're the same. I have here a bag of gold. Now, this bag of gold, can you hear that? Is only gold because it has a gold wrapper on it. But this is a symbol of the talent. And by the way, a talent weighs a lot more than this. So one of the servants comes to the king, and he gives him 5 large bags of gold. We're talking, at the time, we're talking massive money. The equivalent of maybe per bag, maybe $10,000 today. A lot. And he's got 5 of them. So he takes it. That guy is he's gonna do something very interesting. And those of you who deal in investments and business will understand this. We, as Christians, don't like to deal in business sometimes. Because we look at things as, this is God, this is other stuff. And that's basically how we view it. Okay, in church, I think this way, but then when I'm in my life, I think this way. You know, all of us are like that, aren't we? We all like to think of things differently in our lives from our religious system. You know the word secular? You've heard that, the word secular. You know what that comes from, the word secular? It means like undertow or swirling. If you want a secular, you guys, I've seen you guys out there with your warm drinks. Sometimes you'll put the drink together and you put the little fake sugar or the real sugar, and you put a little cream or something like that, and you know what you do? You take a little stir stick and you go like this. Turn it, right? Diffusion, or with liquid it's called osmosis, right? You do this, that's called secularization. To mix. In God's world, there is no separation between Bible and our lives. In God's world, there is no separation between these two things. Okay? Let's continue. So now those of you who are investment, people who do business and know investments, you remember this. So he gave one, how many bags? 5 of gold. To another he gave what? Yes, James, I agree with you. 2 bags of gold. Which one is better? Now, which one's better, 5 or 2? Of course, we say 5. But now, I say someone said 4. Think about this for a second. The one who has 5 has more possibility of losing. You know that, right? If you invest 5 bags of gold and everything goes south and the economy goes down, between the 2 and the 5, which one is better off? Number 2, right? If they all lose their gold, number 2 says, praise Jesus, I don't have 5. Sir, I am so sorry that I lost 2 bags, but I'm glad that I wasn't having 5. You know, so remember, as investments happen, with more amounts comes more risk. It's like stocks. That's why people say diversify. In fact, in the book of Ecclesiastes, literally, Solomon says, diversify. Invest in different things. He says, because you don't know which one will do better. So diversify. If this one loses, at least that one will gain. That's what diversifying means, becoming more secular with your money. Well, if you put all the eggs in one basket and the fox comes and eats the eggs, what happens? They're all gone. Instead, put them in different baskets and maybe the fox won't find those ones over there, right? It's kind of like with banks. Banks are supposedly insured, right? But sometimes there are people that have money that will take many accounts or many banks they'll use. If they have more money, they want to try to diversify so that if one goes down, at least there's something else. Or maybe you have a couple mattresses you shove it under, right? Try to have different mattresses. Not under the bed with a guy who sweats all day and all night. All right, so the important thing is diversification. But you see, this is a parable about growth, and this guy, one of them has 5, one of them has 2, and there's a degree of risk. Less risk on number 2 than number 5. Are you still with me? All right, very good. Let's continue on. And to another he gave what? 1 talent. Now, I like the word talent being used sometimes because it does interconnect with what it really means. The word talent, actually, talent as in the ability to do something, comes from this concept in English, the talent. It's a degree of wealth. There are some people who are talented, and then there are ones like Pastor John who are not as talented, right? That's how it works. My son, John, preaches. He does a great job, but you know what's really cool? He gets out the guitar, and like my dad, just starts playing away. And I'm like, dude, now actually I'm kind of glad I'm not talented in that way because I would end up sometimes always doing this. Right? I'd rather say, I have talented people around me, and they will handle it. But there are funerals I've been at where I all of a sudden had to sing the song because there was absolutely nothing. And that's when I say, I have a YouTube. Could everyone just listen to, I've got Melvere here singing on YouTube, right? Something like that. My friends, talents are given by God. In fact, I'd like you to real quickly, in the book of, let's see if I get the right one here. I got too many of these things here. And let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Keep your finger in Matthew. But 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 11. I'd like you to read with me. It says here, I'm going to start with verse 7. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good, Paul says. Verse 8. To one there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another knowledge. You know, there's people that have wisdom and others that have knowledge. They're different. And also to some faith, because some people have more faith than others. You know, there's the one in the room that says, Pastor, we can do this. And then there's the other one in the room that goes, I don't know. I have a little more wisdom than that. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? We all work together. We find the Word of God coming out of people that are working together. It's not just one person. It's many with different talents. He's talking about that. And then we have other gifts of healing. You know, there are those actually that do pray, and there is healing. We've seen that in this church, haven't we? To another, there's miraculous powers. To others, there's prophecy. To others, there's distinguishing between different spirits. And that's very important, to be able to know someone what they're really saying. You know what I mean? When someone's talking, to understand what they're really saying behind what they're saying, that's important. That takes wisdom. That takes a lot of work. And it takes a gift from God to do that. And then we come to the crux of everything here. There's interpretation. Verse 11, All these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and He distributes them to each just as He, God, determines. So that means all of us are kind of like these guys standing there. There's one that's given 5 bags. There's one that's given 2 bags. And there's one that's given 1 bag. But you know what we like to do sometimes? We like to look at each other's bags, don't we? Politics. You know that. The green-eyed monster. Envy. Oh, you think the pastors don't do that? Sometimes we pastors are the worst. We look and say, oh, I wish I had those talents. Oh, if only I was in that congregation, then I would grow. My church would grow. Oh, if only I could do this thing. Only, I'll have that. With a museum, I've had, oh, if only I had a museum like that. And I said, well, you can start to build it. Well, I don't have the money for it. Of course, I don't have the money for it either, but it's called one at a time. You start going one at a time. One at a time. It's called investment. You go, and that's why I'm always, James is like, wow, Dad, we're going to Target. Okay, we're going to go to the toy section. Right, James? He's like, okay, I'm going to look around and I'll meet you there. Okay, go to the toy section. And I go through, and I go to the Star Wars aisle. I'll go to the Marvel, and I say, that guy looks like Enoch. If he just has the clothes a little different, I'm going to grab him. And then Anna says, what did you buy? I went through and I found a NECA figure that looks just like I have it in the museum sitting there. It hasn't been opened. But the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, the feet. I see it, I go, there's our Christian. Okay, now I've got to pull it. I can have a thing on now with Paul in there, the whole idea. So someone, a child, a person can pick it up and look at it, feel it. Now I know the guys that made it. They said, that's my thing. And I say, no, it's now mine. I bought it and repurposed it. And now he is onward Christian soldiers, right? But that's how investment works. That's how we do it. We have to make choices ourselves. It comes from the bag of talent that God gave you. And it says here, everyone. I know it says maybe in the King James, every man. And ladies go, well, it doesn't include me. Sorry, you can't run away from this one. For the word anthropos does not mean male. It means mankind. So anthropology is about women too. Okay, right? So the thing is we all are given measures of faith, and that includes people, even people that don't even know the name of Jesus. Do you know that? Even people who know nothing about the name of Jesus have been given talents by God, and God has called them to be in His kingdom. They just don't know it yet because someone hasn't told them and it hasn't awakened in them. You know that, right? Sometimes we think about Christianity like Darwinism. Oh, there's people who came from this side of the world, and that's them. So that's that race of people. Oh, but this one came from that side of the world. That's so racist if you think about it. Darwinism is super racist because nobody's connected. We believe in a God that came from one family. Are you alive? We came from one family. No matter what skin color we have, we all came. Everyone, every human being came from Adam and Eve. And He gives talents to each one because you are the DNA of God. He's your prime mover, whether you know it or not. The next parable is coming because that one deals with all nations, even those who don't know God. But, sorry, I gave you a little bit of a foreshadowing. All right, so we continue on. So this king moves away, and it's almost like in this time of Jesus. You know, Jesus was here. He was on earth. He died and rose again. And then he says, I'm going to go away. Let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will what? Come again. The king is coming back. Let's read again. Matthew chapter 25. Move backward. I know, here it is again. I have thousands of texts, and I'm only going to be at a few. Sorry. No, not sorry. I think it's the right thing to do. All right, let's continue on. So, each one according to his, 2 bags, each one according to his ability. This is in verse 15. He gave one 5 bags, another 2 bags, 2 talents, another 1 talent, each according to his what? Ability. That's very important. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once. Now, by the way, did you notice that? The word ethos is used here in Greek. Immediately. He saw the 5 bags and he knew what he was going to do. Now, I have people in my church that are like that. Some people will look and they see something and they go, I'm on it. Pastor, I'm on it. You know, Ruley, one of those, you know, okay, we need to deal with this. I'm on it. We got it. We'll take care of it. Boom. You know, immediately you're moving. Okay, went on it immediately. The man who had received 5 bags and he put his money to work and gained what? Remember, he could have lost those 5 bags, but you know what? His talents understood something. He had the zeitgeist. You know, one of those words, I love that word, zeitgeist. The spirit of the times. What sells today versus what sold last year? You know what I mean? Understanding. He had his finger on the pulse. He immediately had a business proposition, and he gained how many more back? Now, it may be a couple years that this happened. We don't know. The king was away. We're not told how long it was, but we are told that he came back and this guy had 5 more talents. Now, you know how it is, don't you? In life, people who are talented and are willing to grow that talent actually create more talent. I'm thinking of my son John. I'm thinking of my dad when it comes to music. Dad never was taught the guitar, the piano. He was taught the violin. He didn't like the violin that much. But that violin taught him the piano, and that violin taught him the guitar. John is much like that, my son. He'll just, all of a sudden, it just starts learning it. It's all good, principle. All right, we're good. I got it. I'm going to try. Okay, I'm going to try this. For me, give me drums. I'm okay. But the thing is playing like that and having it come out of me, I don't have that. So therefore, it doesn't grow as much. Some people have certain talents. Now, when it comes to me, maybe it's like filmmaking. I like visuals. I get into that. I get into soundtrack. If I get someone who writes the music, I find ways to integrate it and rewrite it in a way that works. That's where my talents lie. And you have talents out there. You have multiple, and some you don't even know about. But how are you going to know about your talents unless you try? You must start investing. It doesn't take much to do it, but you got to be willing. I've got something here. Ellen White has a list on this parable. Let me give you her list, which is kind of cool. There's people with mental talents, good mind to understand things. And yet sometimes we're too busy on our phones. We're not really thinking about stuff that will change the world. You know what I mean? We got to take in so that we can give. How can we invest our mind to do something that matters? Education is important. right? Graduations matter. Speaking talents. A lot of people like to talk about speaking talents, but you know, sometimes that can be good, sometimes not. Sometimes people just are not very good at public speaking. But after time of working, they start finding out, actually, I'm not half bad. I'm learning. My first sermon was abysmal. Maybe this sermon is abysmal. I don't know. But I'll tell you, when I first started preaching, it was too long. You know how you're supposed to have 3 points to it? I think there was about 25 points because I thought I wouldn't have enough time. And you know it's bad when the pastor that's there starts doing this to you. Believe you me, if there's potluck and it's 1 in the afternoon, it's time. It doesn't help that I kind of grew up in New York, but you know, and I'd go to those African-American churches, man, and boy, you're just starting about 1 o'clock. Ooh, you're just going, and that sermon's going to be a while. You're going to sweat it out, and by the way, it feels like we're sweating it out. Can we hit the air con in here for a little bit? If somebody could just, you know, the air con, thank you. I apologize, but I know we'll get the talent of the Waze company going at it. And so the thing is all of us have different talents. Some can speak very shortly and yet get the point across. Some of us learn these talents this way. Also, influencing. Influence. You may not be a public speaker, but maybe you have a way to influence others to become a part of God's kingdom, to change their lives, to do something for God. Do you know how powerful that is? I know on YouTube and on TikTok and everything, we talk about influencers. Frankly, most of those influencers aren't influencing anything, they're selling stuff. Influencing means having someone change their life. Some of those influencers are doing that, coming from a new perspective. Something to make your life better in some way. You know, that's all preaching is influencer. You know that, right? We're influencing people to know Jesus, to know the Bible, and to change their lives. You can be an influencer. Even though people don't see you on YouTube, you can have power. Those talents have been given to you. Time. Time is a talent. Do you know that? Do you know you have that? Some people have more time than others. Some of us waste our time. We don't invest it at all. We just spend it. We spend it on so many different things that don't matter. I am hoping that if you're just noodling around on the internet, I'm hoping sometimes that is doing something to build your life or do something that matters. Something that can expand time. Martin Luther said something amazing once. He said, if I have a job that takes me an hour to do, what I will do is I will pray for 50 minutes. I will pray for 50 minutes that I can get it done in the next 10. And God always allows me to. And by the way, listen to him on that. He translated the entire Bible in a year and a half from the original language to German. Bang! He did it in 8 months in the New Testament. 8 months. And then he started speeding up with Hebrew. And boy, man, at that Wartburg Castle, that guy could translate. Some mess-ups there are, but Erasmus helped him out a little bit. There were letters back and forth they were doing about certain words. But you know what? Power came because he took the time he had. And instead of noodling around doing nothing, he did something that matters. Time is expensive, my friends. Health. Don't allow your health to go away because those bags of gold are like that. Sometimes we don't invest when we have our health to use it and use ourselves for something that matters because one day it can go away. Also, money can be invested. When Jesus comes again, all the things we have will be blown away. This church building, you see this church building? It's very nice here. It's going to be burned. And I'm going to applaud. because I love the building only for what it can do for God. When Jesus comes, I don't care anymore. All the stuff we have, everything we collect, better have some purpose to make you closer to the concept of your life, where you're headed. And if you're connected with God, it will mean something, or it will just disappear like gold melting between the fingers and running down onto the floor. And finally, kindness is a talent. Did you know that? There are people who can be kind even if they are mean. And what I mean by that is we can be honest with people and yet be kind. That was the hardest thing about being a pastor. I never realized how I could beat someone over the head by being truthful to them. Truth without kindness is overrated. With kindness, we can take a truth without. I'm reminded today. Yesterday there was a guy looking for asking about solar panels at our house, and he caught me outside. I go, oh my goodness, here we go. Another long conversation about solar panels, right? And so he asked me what I did. I said I'm a pastor, and he says, "Oh, I go to this church over in Riverside. It was the Foursquare Church, and." Oh, wonderful. Praise the Lord. Of course, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. He asked me what denomination, Seventh-day Adventist. He says, oh, yeah. He says, well, what's your address? So I shared with him the address. I said, but don't go on Sunday. I'm going to go on Saturday. Huh? Why is that? Now, here it is. I could start talking to him about the mark of the beast. You are, that. I said, why Saturday? Well, that's the day Jesus worshiped on, so I'm going to worship on that day. The Jewish people do that. I mean, he was Jewish. Actually, Muslims, they worship on the same day. It's Friday night as the call to prayer starts, as the sun goes down. They say Friday, but actually, according to the Bible, that's Sabbath. And some Christians do that. And we're Seventh-day Adventists. We're some of them that do. I didn't know that. I said, so if you come over there, I don't want you to come on a day when it's not going to be me. I won't see you, man. So, very good. Shared everything, and we're done. How can we be truthful kindly? Kindness. Respect. So these guys have the talents. I have not, and I'm looking at the time. Wow. King comes back. 5, Mr. 5 has 5 more. You know what he says? I'm not even going to read it here. I'm going to just say it to you. He says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. My grandfather used to say that about when we're cooking on the barbecue. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. And come into the kingdom that I prepared for you. Wow, he doubled it. That's an investment. That's a big deal. He takes it in. Now the one with 2 that felt a little bit down, but actually had to invest a little less, a little happier because he's not going to lose as much. He invested 2 of these, and he doubled it. And you know what the king says? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. You have done much with small things. Now do more with many. Right? In he goes. But then comes our friend, who's our good Seventh-day Adventist friend, our Sadventist. 1. Let's see what he says. Here, I need to open it up. This one I have to read. Because unless you understand what he says, you'll never understand what he means, right? So, let's make sure I can find the place. Verse 24, thank you. Then the man who had received the 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said. Oh, watch out. Instead of just talking about what you did. And now, he's going to tell the king a lot of stuff. Master, he said, I know you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. I'm going to really quickly let you know that any CEO is like that. You have people to do work for you. He saw these other guys, and he says, why am I going to do it? It's only one bag of gold. Now, he could have spent it for himself, but he knows he's dead if he does that. So instead, he says, I'm going to put a hole in the ground. My grandfather on my mom's side, Grandpa Good, one of the funniest stories was Grandpa hid, how much money was it? Some $25,000 or $30,000 underneath in the crawl space, the place. He didn't want anyone to steal it, but he lost the map. And they had a closing that was like, this was in South Carolina. I remember this story, Grandma telling me this story. Yeah, he lost the map. He didn't know where it was. He had to dig out the whole thing. He was digging away. And I remember Grandma was telling me, Harry, I told you to put it in the bag. I don't want to put it in the bag. Put it in the ground. And closing was coming, and they were going to move, and they needed it. Finally, he found it. But in the ground, the money went. It didn't enlarge at all. Got dirty, just like the one talent. It went in the ground. At least no one found it and stole it, right? By the way, have you ever seen guys that go digging and they find something, the little metal detector? Woo, 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 woo. That someone comes along like that. Watch out. Gold emits a signal with those metal detectors. So you're a hard man. You harvest where you never sow. You gather where you never scattered seed. Verse 23, so I was afraid. And that's really what it is, isn't it? I was afraid. I went out and hid your gold in the ground. See here what belongs to you. There you go. Now, here's an interesting thing. We think that our talent isn't much. We think that our talent is not much. We think that what we have can't gain anything, really. And so what we do is sit on it. You know what this guy said, the king? He says, you wicked and lazy employee. So you knew that I harvest where I do not sow and gather what I have not scattered seed? Well then, you should have at least put the money in the bank so you could get some interest. Don't stick it in the ground. Then he says, he took it, at least you do it, and then when I returned, I would have received something back with interest. Verse 28. So now he took the bag from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more. They will have an abundance, but whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken from them. Verse 30. Here's the hard part. Throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, that, of course, is very ancient words. You hear that over and over in the ancient world in talking about laziness and how but you know what? We are like that, aren't we? God gives us talents and abilities, and yet all we do is think about ourselves. He was thinking about himself. Guaranteed this guy was investing for himself somewhere in his life. After all, he was an employee, right? How many here are employees of Jesus? Yeah? Let me change it. How many here serve Jesus? Now, there's a difference, isn't there? I found this in my life, just because you pay somebody doesn't mean they care. The faith that is talked about in the 10 virgins, the oil, you have to have that faith with you. And as you feed on that faith, that talent that God gives you now can be expanded. 5 can turn into 10. 10 can turn into 20. Do you know that one bag, this one bag under a good investment could have been 100? He could have been more talented than even the guy with 10. But he wasn't willing to do it for his master. You know that? Sometimes the most talented of us are the least giving. Do you know that? This is the message that Jesus says. Because when the Son of Man comes again, when Jesus comes again, and he is coming, and it is soon, we don't know the day or the hour, some of the most talented of us oftentimes hold back from God. We hold back because we think we have power over that. But we don't, because it slips through our fingers. My friends, never hold back from God. Give of yourself, and you will find that that one small talent that you may have will turn into 5 million. HMS Richards, who, by the way, loved this building. Do you know that? HMS Richards from Voice of Prophecy. This was his church. And that organ right there, we don't play it because it's a little off tune, we need to get it fixed. But it was donated by Jaja Gabor's sister, Eva Gabor. And this church was full back in those days, man. And do you know that HMS Richards, he was on the radio every single day. Around the world. La Voz de la Esperanza in Spanish. Then it moved on into the next. And to this day, Voice of Prophecy is continuing as a ministry. Do you know that his grandmother became a Seventh-day Adventist because of a preacher that preached a 45-meeting thing, and he only baptized 3 old ladies? He felt himself a loser. He felt himself a loser. And HMS Richards spoke that that man was not a loser because I knew the message of Jesus because of that man. And many millions came to Jesus because of that one guy with one talent, but he was willing to invest it. Even if it wasn't what everyone thought was awesome, didn't matter. You do it for Jesus. God bless you all.